That is the very first Gladiator EcoDiesel that I've been able to find. Just want to give special thanks to Bob Allen, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram over here in Frankfort, Kentucky. Yeah, these guys are really awesome to work with. This is where I got my EcoDiesel last winter. They're easy to work with, really made it possible for me to get into the truck that I wanted. So give these guys a call if you're looking for a Jeep or a Ram with a diesel or a gas engine. Give them a call. And again, I just want to thank these guys for helping us out with the video today. So here we go. We're going to get onto a 4-lane highway here. Of course, we're trying to merge into traffic at the moment, so I can't really give it much throttle at the moment, but we'll get there. So let's go over the window sticker real quick and get this out of the way. 21 model year Jeep Gladiator. This is the new high altitude trim level. There's your base price. Now the high altitude has a whole lot of options. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can screenshot it or pause the video if you need to check out the options in these various packages. This particular truck is pretty much loaded up. You can see there though that the diesel engine, $4,000, and that automatically defaults you to the 8 HP 75 version of the transmission, which is another $2,000. So if you want the diesel, that's an extra $6,000 right off the bat. This one has a sticker just over $60,000. The combined fuel economy is 24, which is the same as you saw with my Ram. Even though the city and the highway numbers are a little bit different, on average you're going to get the same mileage with the EcoDiesel in the Jeep as you do with the Ram. Alright, so let's talk about the interior briefly. I'm going to go over this stuff quickly because a lot has not changed for the 2021 model year. Now these seats are, exclusive to this trim level. Really nice leather seats with a cool looking stitching in there. You got some nice leather here on the dash. Soft touch materials. It looks beautiful inside, but as far as the dash layout and the controls and all of that, it's pretty much exactly the same as the 2020 model year. So again, not a whole lot has changed, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because I feel like that the Jeep Wrangler and Jeep Gladiator have one of the more beautiful interiors in the entire midsize segment personally. And here's a look at the back. Of course, the rear seats have that cool stitching in them also. And they are really comfortable, give you a nice amount of support. I guess this is an accessory bag or cover of some sort. With a high altitude package, you get these nice floor liners. Actually, I believe this is optional on this package. It comes with some of the packages. I believe this was an add-on on this particular package. But they are nice floor liners. They give you good coverage. All in all, the interior on this truck, again, hasn't changed a lot. But this particular trim level is new for 2021, so I just wanted to show you the difference in the seats because that's the main difference. And they are pretty nice seats. So this is the new color for 2021 called Snazberry. Some people would probably really love this color and some probably won't. I'd say it's a polarizing color. It's a nice sunny day, and if you walk around it, I don't know what the camera is going to show you, but this color kind of changes depending on the light. In the bright sunlight like this, it looks very red, but on a cloudy day, it looks very purplish. So it's an interesting color, but it's a neat color, I think. It's something different that you don't see all the time. Let me get over here on the shady side of the truck. See how the truck looks a little purplish in the shade? So that's what Snazberry looks like. It changes depending on the light. Those black wheels are, again, a part of the high altitude package. They're 20-inch wheels. First time that they've used 20-inch wheels on the Gladiator. So if you like 20s, there you go. There's the EcoDiesel badge. From the exterior, that's the only way you know that it's a diesel, is because of that badge. So let's pop the hood and get into the meat and potatoes of this video. So driving the Jeep Gladiator with the EcoDiesel, there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. First of all, there's two big differences between the Jeep version and the Ram version. The Jeep version, first of all, has the automatic stop-start, which a lot of people hate, but I personally love it because when you're getting 0 miles per gallon sitting at a red light or sitting in a fast food drive-through, that's what destroys your fuel economy. So in the Jeep version, when you stop, it'll shut the engine off and you save all that fuel. Again, it's something I love. A lot of people complain about it. I love it. The other thing is, in the Jeep version, you can manually shift gears. You can actually put the stick over in manual mode and you can shift all the way up and down wherever you want. You can manually shift it. And unless you over rev it or lug it, it will hold the gear that you put it in. In the Ram version, you don't get that option. You can lock out gears from the top down. You can lock out 8th gear or 7th gear if you're towing or whatever, and it'll just use that range of gears, but you can't manually shift it. So I really like in the Jeep how you can manually shift the gears. I wish that's something they would put on the Ram version. It's a whole lot more useful to be able to manually shift. And again, I love the automatic stop start. Other than that, it feels just like the Ram version. Even though the Jeep version has less torque, I guess the fact that the Jeep is a little bit lighter in weight makes up for that. And so the overall feel driving this thing is pretty much exactly like the Ram. You know, you've got all that low end torque, but you can tell it doesn't have a lot of horsepower. It's not going to win any races, but that's not what it's meant to do. It's meant to get good fuel economy and provide you with good torque if you're off-road or if you're pulling a trailer or something along those lines. And you can tell it definitely does have a lot of good low end torque. So overall, it feels pretty good. Now, one thing I did notice when we were driving down here is it does have a little bit of that wander. My Wrangler had that, my Gladiator didn't have it. This Gladiator seems to have a little bit of that, and there's so many different hypotheses on what causes that. On my Wrangler, it was just a software issue. They updated the calibration and all the software, all the computers on board, and it fixed it instantly. It drove perfect after that. But I noticed there's a new TSB out that addresses some hardware on the Jeeps. So who knows what actually causes it? Maybe it's more than one thing. But this Jeep had a little bit of that wander. Maybe it'll break in. It's only got 16 miles on it. But that's the only drivability concern that I would have with this, is just that handling. You know, and another part of it is that's a sacrifice you make to have that solid axle in the front end too. But overall, it drove really nice, and I want to get out and show you the diesel engine now, because that's what we're here to talk about, right? Okay, so here's the real meat and potatoes of this video, and that's the engine. So for the first time ever in a Jeep pickup, you've got this EcoDiesel engine that you can get now as a factory option. 260 horsepower, which matches the rating in the Ram, but they've detuned the torque a little bit. You're at 442 in this application. But like I said, driving down here just a minute ago, you can't really tell any deficiency. You know, this is a slightly smaller, slightly more lightweight truck than the Ram. And so that kind of makes up for some of the loss of torque here. And you can't really feel much in the way of difference. Now, under the hood here, you know, having a Ram in my driveway, I see a few differences right off the bat. You know, they've moved the alternator up to a higher location for off-roading purposes. You know, you don't want to have your alternator getting dunked in the water very often, so they moved it up a little higher. And since they did that, they decided, I guess, to move all the air intake snorkel and ductwork over to the driver's side, whereas on the Ram, all of your air box and everything is over here. In the Jeep application, it's over on the driver's side. And one interesting tidbit about that is that the oil filter is down here on this driver's side of the engine. And so that makes it a little bit trickier to do service intervals on this, but it's not bad. I've seen some guys just use really long extensions and go down in here, and you can get to it okay. So it's not a real big deal, but that's the main differences that I see, is they moved, you know, some things around basically and repackaged it for Jeep use. And also it is noticeably tighter under here. You guys have seen under hood of the Ram that I have, and there's all kinds of space to get in here on the Ram, but on the Jeep, they've kind of shoehorned it in there. And that's always been kind of a concern on the Jeep Gladiator, is packaging. You know, there's not a lot of space in here, and so it's harder for the engineering team to keep the engine cool like they want. That's one of the reasons you don't have the 2-liter turbo gas engine option in the Gladiator, and I'm assuming that's also why they have derated the EcoDiesel in the Gladiator and the Wrangler as well, probably due to cooling, although I can't confirm that. But anyhow, you've still got tons of torque, and it's a fairly clean looking installation here. You don't have a whole lot, you know, of crazy stuff going on here. It's just a few things they've moved around to package it for the Jeep. So as I was mentioning, this truck does have a lot of options on it. It's got the factory LED lights. You can see how the bumper cover is painted in the factory color, which is unique to this trim level as well. Really nice though that you have a lot of color matching going on here. Some people will really love that. The high altitude package is going to be nice for a lot of folks. Okay, so let's look at this because this is going to be really interesting. The Payload sticker, come on camera, focus, 1,156 pounds of payload capacity on this particular model. I was looking at a guy the other day, he had a Rubicon EcoDiesel Gladiator. His payload was 932 pounds. You know, it all kind of depends on where you are as far as options, but that's something that you have to keep in mind, because if you're going to be towing a trailer, or if you've got a large family, you're planning on doing overlanding and camping and so forth and so on, with a truck like this, you've got to make sure that you can stay within your payload specs. And of course the payload, as we've talked about before, has a lot to do with your towing, your actual real world legal towing as well. Dampened tailgate, which of course is a really cool standard feature on the Gladiator. This one doesn't have a bed liner, but you've got a lot of options for bed liners these days. The dual liner, various spray ends, so forth and so on. You do get the LED lights in the bed, which is a really cool deal. I mean, some people don't really think about stuff like that, but you know, here where we live in the wintertime, it seems like it's dark all the time, and you're getting in the back of your truck in the dark and you can't see what you're doing, especially if you've got like a tonneau cover on. It gets really dark in here. So these LED lights are standard, and they're really a nice option. Nice standard feature, I should say. And you've got these standard tie-down hooks here as well. Now you can get the trail rail system that goes along the side. You know, I had that on my Gladiator, and then you can move your cleats around wherever you want them. That's an option as well. So you've got some various things you can get from Mopar. You can get tonneau covers and all kinds of different things from the factory if you want. Just going to try and take a look under the Gladiator EcoDiesel to see if there's any big differences here between this version and the Ram version. You can see a big muffler right there. I also noticed this has the larger Dana 44 style rear axle under it. I guess this is the wide track version like you get if you get like the Max Tow package or the Rubicon. And I'm assuming they're packaging this axle in with this model just because of the diesel engine. You don't want to have an inferior axle with all that torque behind it. So for the 2021 model year, they've tried to expand the lineup a little bit. You've got a few additional trim levels that you didn't have last year. And I think this high altitude trim level is going to be maybe one of the more popular ones, because it does dress the truck up a little bit. And that seems to be something that a lot of people are looking for these days. Trucks that are kind of dressed up, they feel like a car, kind of give you that, you know, comfortable experience that a car gives you, but you still have the practicality of a truck. So I think it's going to be a pretty big success. Again, the color matching looks cool. 20-inch black wheels, something you haven't been able to get before. And all of that nice leather with the stitching on the inside. And you've got a lot of other pretty neat things as well. So it's been kind of an interesting experience for me too. I had a Jeep Gladiator. As you guys know, I turned it in a little bit early and got the new 2020 Ram 1500 with the EcoDiesel. And now I'm back in this Gladiator again for this review. And it's kind of interesting because I almost forgot what it felt like to sit in a Jeep. It's a very different experience, you know, as far as how the dash sits up so vertically, the windshield is so vertical. You know, everything is just kind of, it just feels more military and more tough, you know, and more basic. Even though you've got a lot of nice features here, it just feels more like a rugged vehicle. Whereas the Ram is big and roomy and spacious and kind of feels more like a car in some ways. But you know, the Jeep is really cool, and it's kind of bringing back memories riding in this thing right now. So you do have push button start. This camera does not want to cooperate today. It's mad and it wants to go home, I guess. This thing does have navigation also. On the Gladiator EcoDiesel, the only thing I've noticed differently in the vehicle info menu is that you see the DEF gauge there, something you got to keep an eye on. But what I have found is that with the Ram anyway, and this one should be the same, is that you actually get quite a bit of mileage on a tank of DEF. So it's not something that's a big deal, but you do need to keep an eye on it. Other than that, I mean, all the menus look pretty much the same. You got your off-road menu, fuel economy, and so forth and so on. Pretty much the same as the Gladiator with the gas engine that I had previously. But again, just a couple of subtle differences. I really still like this interior. I think it's laid out great. I like where they put everything. And I noticed today that you can now finally get a factory integrated trailer brake controller. So if you need to tow with it, you can get a trailer brake controller that they put right here. You sacrifice this outlet, but you get that cool integrated controller. So that's always nice. Again, the leg room in here for tall guys, not the best in the world. The headroom, not the best in the world, but it's manageable. I'm about 6'3", and I fit in here okay. I drove and put 14,000 miles on my Gladiator, and it was okay. So it's definitely manageable and not a big deal. And these leather seats really, yeah, the leather seats really help. I mean, you can see my headroom there. It's not bad. It's not too bad. But these leather seats are pretty comfy, and I do prefer them over the cloth seats as far as comfort goes, definitely. And I guess they would be easier to clean too, so if you got them muddy or whatever, you could clean them out pretty easy. So here we go. We're gonna head back out of here and head back to the dealership now. Give this thing a little bit more of a test drive. The suspension is really soft and comfy. I'm assuming that this high altitude trim level is based upon the Overland, and so the Overland always was the one that would drive a little bit better. So let me give it a little bit of throttle, not a whole lot, but yeah, see, you can definitely tell that it has the torque. That's something that's really cool about the diesel engines, all that torque. But yeah, the 8-speed shift's really great. It's nice that you've got the heavier duty version of the 8-speed in this. Probably something you're never going to have to worry about is the drive line in this truck. You know, the transmission, the heavy duty axles, the heavy duty transfer case. That stuff's going to last you forever, and you're not going to have to worry about it. We're going to pull back out here on the main highway again. So I don't know if you guys could hear that or not, but with the EcoDiesel and the Gladiator, it's just like in the Ram, where you can hear a little bit of that diesel clatter. You can definitely tell that it's a diesel engine, but it's not obnoxious. You know, it doesn't drive you nuts. It's not real loud like we remember from back in the 80s and 90s. This thing is actually pretty smooth. And once you get up to cruising speed, it's also pretty quiet. When you're taking off, that's when you really notice that diesel clatter, but again, it's not bad. So we're cruising down the road here again. I'm at 55 miles an hour, and like I mentioned earlier, this truck does have just a little bit of that Jeep wander to it, but it's not bad. I'm hoping that it's something that'll just break in. And again, you've got that solid axle, which makes a little bit of a difference. But anyhow, it's not too bad. The leather steering wheel is nice. This thing has the cold weather package, which I highly recommend if you live in a cold climate. The heated steering wheel is one of my favorite features. I mean, it's just awesome. And you've got the heated mirrors, heated seats, and all of that, remote start, everything as well. But the heated steering wheel just makes a huge difference. When your hands are freezing cold in the wintertime, having that heated steering wheel makes a big difference. So the cold weather package is definitely worth the money, which this truck has. And with the diesel engine, you know, it's another thing too. On a really, really cold day, it would be nice to be able to warm up the engine a little bit before you take off. But yeah, driving this thing, it's really good. The transmission shifts really nice. The power is good for a Jeep. I would say that this powertrain is matched to the Jeep, probably better than any powertrain in a Jeep I've ever driven. I mean, it's just really, really awesome. Everybody would like to have more horsepower, but let's be honest, in a truck, what you really need is torque. And there's the automatic stop start. It just engaged. So now we're sitting here at a red light. We're not wasting fuel. We're not wasting money. As soon as you lift up off the brake pedal, ready to go. I really like that feature. I don't know why they didn't do it on the Ram. Wish they would have done it on the Ram. But it's nice to know that Jeep has it. So in the future, hint, hint. Anyway, it's a pretty good package overall. They promised they were going to do this, and they finally came through. For the 2021 model year, you can get the Jeep Gladiator with this really awesome EcoDiesel engine. Should be able to get mileage well into the 20s on your combined cycle. You just have to keep maintenance and all those things in the back of your mind as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a few minutes, but right now I just wanted to get this thing out on the road and drive it and kind of give you some impressions. I want to be able to compare this to the Gladiator that I had with a Pentastar gas engine, and also compare it to the Ram. I think that'd be a pretty neat comparison because there's more similarities than you think. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Let's see if we can hear the diesel when we pull up this hill. Not really. To be honest, I hear the turbo more than I do the engine. When you dip into the throttle just a little bit at around, say, 1700, 1800 RPM, you can hear the diesel spool up. The other nice thing about the torque is that it enables you to make a pass a lot more safely and a lot more easily. You know, with the Pentastar engine, you kind of have to rev it up, give it some RPM, which may take a couple of seconds. With this diesel, you dip into the throttle and it takes off. Which brings me to another point. The lag and horrible throttle response in the Ram doesn't seem to be as noticeable here. You know, we've been driving this thing for a little while, and I haven't noticed see, like as soon as I touch the accelerator pedal on this one, it just kind of takes off. It's got a lot better response. Seems like it just doesn't really have that lag. She really goes. Okay. It is a cool truck, and hopefully this camera will stay focused for a moment so I can kind of go through some of these menus. Now, one thing I'm noticing here that they've changed for 21 is the user interface here is slightly different. The icons look different. The response time is a little faster. That's interesting. And there may be more to this than what meets the eye, but they've updated this, obviously. And there's all kinds of cool things in here. You can change a lot of the vehicle settings as far as your wipers, your door locks, your lights, all that kind of stuff. You can set a lot of that in here without having, you know, in the old days, you used to have to go to the dealership and have them set this stuff for you. Now you can do a lot of it here through the Uconnect system. Everybody knows that Uconnect is probably the best infotainment system in the industry. It's really awesome. I love it. So you get the really cool Uconnect system in here too. Yeah, I mean, you hear the turbo whistle a little bit more than the engine. Got the green cap there so you can remember to put diesel fuel in it. Sun's awfully bright today, so make sure that you put your def in here and not in here.
You'll have a big problem, Tim.
Yeah, that would be a big problem. It's nice and dark out here this morning, but I love the sound of a cold start on this EcoDiesel. So, after having some seat time with the Gladiator with both engine options that you can get in it, and obviously now with the Ram that has the new EcoDiesel tuned for a little bit more torque. Like I mentioned in the video, first thing I'll say is that the Ram and the Jeep feel pretty similar with the diesel engine. Obviously the Ram has almost 40 pound-feet more torque, but there's a lot of variables that come into play, and both of them feel pretty much the same in terms of power. The Jeep didn't seem to have as much of the lag and the horrible throttle response, which is interesting to me. It drove really well, actually. The throttle response was good, transmission shift great. I think the diesel in the Gladiator, I think it fits the personality of that truck a little better than the Pentastar V6 does. You know, the Gladiator, like I mentioned in the video, it's got that kind of military feel to it, that rugged, tough feel to it. And there's just something about it, you know, the diesel kind of fits that personality better. So if I was going to buy a new Gladiator right now, if I was going to get another one, it would be really tough for me to decide which engine to go with. You know, the Pentastar and the EcoDiesel are completely different animals. You know, the Pentastar revs really high, makes a lot of horsepower, but not much torque. It's fast, it's sporty, it sounds pretty good, and very simple overall. Doesn't have direct injection, doesn't have a turbo. It's just a simple, powerful engine. But again, it likes to rev to make that horsepower. EcoDiesel, completely different. Low horsepower, high torque. So you got a lot of work that it can do, but it doesn't do it very fast. Gets pretty good fuel economy for what it is. You know, they're just both very different engines. Is about all you can say about it. So it just kind of comes down to how you're going to use the truck. But here's the thing you have to consider with the diesel, especially in the mid-size trucks like the Gladiator. Your payload is less because of the weight of the truck, and maybe cooling and some other things too. Your towing is going to be less because your payload is less. Also, your maintenance is really high. So on the Gen 3 EcoDiesel, the oil filter lists for $92. You can buy it online for a little bit less. The oil spec is completely different now. Oil starts at like $6.50 per quart and goes up from there depending on which brand you go with. So the dealers are getting like $250 just to do an oil and oil filter change. You can do it at home in your driveway with the proper materials for about $100, but it's still 4 times more expensive than the Pentastar Gas V6 as far as just basic maintenance. And then you have the fuel filter, which is another $40 or $50. That has to be replaced every other oil change. In the winter time, if you live in a cold climate, you're probably going to want to run additive in your fuel to keep it from gelling and freezing up. You may want the block heater so you can plug that up at night to keep the engine block warm so the truck will start more easily the next morning. Just, you know, a lot of things you have to consider when you go with the diesel power plant. Repairs, really expensive on the diesel. If you get into that later on down the road out of warranty, something that's going to really cost you a lot of money. So you got that huge upfront cost, huge maintenance costs, the potential for huge repair costs later down the road. You're going to spend a lot of money to get the diesel and to own the diesel. Now, can you make a little bit of that back on fuel mileage? Yeah, a little bit. But it's just something you have to consider. There's a lot of sacrifices that you make on the mid-sized trucks to go diesel. Having said that, if you're somebody who just wants the maximum range, you want to go out and just drive as far as you can without having to stop and fill up again, the diesel might be a good option for you. So I just want you to understand, you know, you've got to consider everything. You know, if you want maximum payload and towing ability, you still have to go with a V6 gas motor so that you can get the max tow package. But overall, you know, the Gladiator with the EcoDiesel is a good package. I'm glad they offer it. Options are always good, right? And so I'm really happy that they're doing that. And I enjoyed the time that I spent with it. It felt really good. It was nice to have that torque and the power. And like I said, it's a good option. So I appreciate you guys watching. Gonna get back to the house and get some work going here. Yeah, so thanks again to Bob Allen over here in Frankfort, Kentucky for letting us do this video for you guys today. If you have any questions about the Jeep Gladiator EcoDiesel or the EcoDiesel in general, post them below and let me know, and I'll try to help you out all that I can. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll talk to you later.